You know that feeling when you discover your entire family is capable of anything for money, including summoning the dead? I learned this on Halloween 2024, when my mother, my two siblings, and my aunt decided to hold a séance to contact my dead grandmother and find out where she hid her $20 million inheritance. The problem? They didn't know I was listening to everything, and more importantly, they didn't know I had the documents they thought they burned 3 weeks earlier. So I did what anyone would do in that situation. I put on Grandma's purple velvet dress, wore her gray wig, sprayed on the Chanel No. 5 she always wore, and walked into that dark room as if I'd returned from beyond the grave. And when I said in her trembling voice, "I know what you did," you should have seen their faces. My name is Claire Morrison, and I'm 28 years old. Until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a normal Vermont family. You know, those families who eat apple pie on Thanksgiving, hang stockings by the fireplace at Christmas, and pretend they like each other during the holidays. But everything changed when my grandmother, Eleanor Morrison, died on October 1st. Natural death, they said. 82 years old, tired heart, fell asleep and never woke up. Nothing suspicious. Except my grandmother had just had a complete checkup the week before, and the doctor said she had the health of a 60-year-old woman. Except she called me 2 days before she died saying, "Claire, dear, I need to talk to you about something important. Come visit me tomorrow." Alone. But I was busy with my work as a graphic designer in Montreal, had tight deadlines, so I said, "Grandma, I'll come this weekend, I promise." She died before the weekend came. The funeral was on a rainy Thursday in October. The fall foliage was at its peak, those vibrant colors of orange, red, and gold that Vermont is famous for. But everything looked gray that day. My mother, Patricia, was wearing a Prada black dress that seemed too expensive for the occasion. My older brother, Marcus, was in the back of the church checking his phone every 5 minutes. My middle sister, Vanessa, was crying, but those were the performative tears she always produced when she wanted attention. And my Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, was calculating something on a notepad. Literally calculating during her own mother's funeral. I was the only one who seemed genuinely sad because I loved my grandmother. Eleanor Morrison had been the only person in my family who treated me like a human being and not as competition or disappointment. When I left Vermont to live in Canada at 22, everyone in the family condemned me. "You're abandoning the family," my mother said. "You'll regret it," Marcus added. But Grandma Eleanor hugged me and whispered, "Go live your life, dear. Don't let them trap you here." She sent me handwritten letters every month, real letters with perfume paper and that elegant cursive handwriting of hers. She'd call me every Sunday at 9 in the morning. Remembered my birthday, my work achievements, my relationship breakups. She cared, truly. So when the will was read a week after the funeral, I wasn't prepared for the shock. The lawyer, a gentleman of about 70 named Robert Caldwell, who'd been my grandmother's friend for decades, gathered us in her Victorian mansion in Burlington, Vermont. The house had 3 floors, an attic full of antiques, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and that smell of old books and lavender I always associated with safety. We sat in the formal living room, the one with the floral wallpaper and antique furniture that cost more than cars. Robert opened his leather briefcase and began to read. "I, Eleanor Ann Morrison, being of sound mind, declare this as my last will and testament." So far, so normal. He continued reading the bureaucratic part about executor and this and that, and then came the part about assets. "To my daughter, Patricia Morrison, I leave my jewelry collection and the property at Lake Champlain." My mother smiled. The jewelry was easily worth $200,000 and the land another $500,000. "To my grandson, Marcus Morrison, I leave my investments in stocks and bonds." Marcus calculated mentally and seemed satisfied. The stocks were worth about $1 million. "To my granddaughter, Vanessa Morrison, I leave my art and antiques collection." Vanessa gave a little squeal. Grandma's art collection included 2 paintings she always said were very valuable. "To my Aunt Linda, I leave the vacation house in Cape Cod." Aunt Linda nodded. already knowing the value of that beachfront property. And then Robert stopped, looked at me, and said, "To my granddaughter, Claire Morrison, I leave this house, all furniture and personal belongings in it, and the contents of the bank safe deposit box." Absolute silence. My mother went white. Marcus stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. Vanessa dropped the wine glass she was holding, and Aunt Linda said, "Wait, what safe deposit box?" Robert continued as if nothing had happened. "Safe deposit box number 307 at Burlington National Bank, whose key is in Miss Claire's possession." I didn't know about any key, and I conclude this will wishing that my family finds peace and truth. Robert closed the briefcase. "Any questions?" "About 1 million. My mother was the first to speak. "This is ridiculous. My mother was clearly senile when she wrote this. Claire didn't even come visit her." "Lie. I visited whenever I could. She barely cared about the family." "Another lie. This will is going to be contested." Robert sighed. "Patricia, this will was written 3 months ago, with Eleanor in perfect mental health. I personally ensured that. She was examined by 2 independent doctors who attested to her capacity, and she knew exactly what she was doing." Marcus punched the table. "So Claire gets everything? The mansion that's worth at least $3 million? And some mysterious safe deposit box that probably has more money?" "The will is clear," Robert said calmly, "and it's legal. You can contest it, but you'll waste time and lawyers' money." Vanessa was crying for real now. "This isn't fair. We're family too. We loved her." I said nothing because part of me was in shock, but another part, the part that had talked to Grandma every week for the last 6 years, knew she had her reasons. Eleanor Morrison didn't do anything without a reason. And then Robert turned to me. "Claire, your grandmother asked me to give you this, personally." He handed me a parchment paper envelope, thick, with my name written in her handwriting. She said to read it alone, at home, when you're ready. I took the envelope with trembling hands. All eyes were on me. "I didn't know about this," I said honestly. "I didn't ask for anything." "But you accepted it quick enough, didn't you?" my mother hissed. "Always knew you were the favorite, always spoiled, always special." The words hurt because they were the opposite of the truth. I had been the family's black sheep for years, the one who left, the one who chose career over marrying and having children like Vanessa, and the one who didn't follow Marcus into the family real estate business. I was the disappointment. Until that moment. "I'll give you time to process this," Robert said, putting away the documents. "Claire, you can call me when you want to access the safe deposit box. Here's my card." He left, leaving me alone with my family. And for the first time in my life, I saw real hatred in their eyes. Not just irritation or disappointment, pure hatred. That night, in the hotel where I was staying in Burlington, I opened Grandma's envelope. My hands were sweating. Inside was a 3-page letter and a small golden key. The letter began, "My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you finally know about the will. I apologize for not telling you before, but I needed to make sure the will was indestructible first. There are things you need to know about our family, things I discovered recently that made me completely change my succession plans. Your mother, your brother, your sister, and my sister Linda are all involved in something terrible, something I discovered by accident 6 months ago when I found documents hidden in Marcus's office." My heart raced. The letter continued. "They're embezzling money from the family trust fund. The trust fund your grandfather established before he died 20 years ago. $20 million that should be distributed equally among all grandchildren when you, the youngest, turn 30. But they've created shell companies, offshore accounts, false records. They're stealing the inheritance that belongs to you as much as Marcus and Vanessa. And more than that, Claire, I think they're planning something for me. I've heard conversations, seen looks, found searches on Linda's computer about natural death in elderly and how not to leave traces. I'm scared, dear. That's why I'm putting everything in your hands." I reread that paragraph 3 times.
My grandmother thought the family was planning to kill her? That seemed crazy. But then she had died 2 weeks after writing that letter. Natural death. Tired heart. I felt nauseous. The letter continued. In the bank safe deposit box, you'll find copies of all the documents proving the fraud. Bank statements, transfer records, everything. Use it as you see fit. But Claire, be careful. They're dangerous when they feel threatened. Don't trust any of them, not even with small things. And one last thing, dear, there's a second safe, one they don't know exists. It's in the basement of the mansion behind the wine rack. The combination is your birth date, 071296. Inside, you'll find the complete truth. Use it wisely. Love you forever, Grandma Eleanor. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the hotel ceiling, processing. My family was stealing a $20 million inheritance. They may have killed my grandmother, and there was a secret safe in the basement of the house that was now mine. The next morning, I called Robert and scheduled to go to the bank. The key that came with the letter opened safe deposit box number 307. Inside, exactly as Grandma said, were stacks of documents. I spent 4 hours photographing everything on my phone. Bank statements showing transfers to companies with generic names, corporate certificates registered in the Cayman Islands, all with Marcus as director. Printed emails between my mother and Aunt Linda discussing distributions and how long till we can access the principal. And then I found something that made me stop breathing. An email from Vanessa to Marcus with the subject, "Final Solution." The body of the email said simply, "She knows too much. We need to accelerate the timeline. That medicine you mentioned, how long does it take to act without leaving traces?"
I vomited in the bank bathroom. My family wasn't just stealing. They'd killed my grandmother, and they'd discussed it by email, as if they were planning a barbecue. I photographed that email, all the emails, and then I took the originals, put them in a folder, and left the bank with trembling legs. I needed to go to the police, obviously, but something made me hesitate. If I went to the police immediately, without more evidence, without fully understanding their plan, they might have time to destroy evidence, hire expensive lawyers, maybe even incriminate me somehow. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed the secret basement safe first. I returned to Grandma's mansion that afternoon. Technically, it was my house now, but I felt like an intruder. Everything smelled like her. The lavender, the old books, the apple pie she used to make. I went down to the basement, a cold place with a stone floor and that musty smell of old places. The wine rack was in the corner, full of dusty bottles that were probably worth a fortune. I pushed it with difficulty. It was heavy, but had hidden wheels. Behind it, embedded in the stone wall, was a small safe with a numeric keypad. My fingers trembled when I typed 071296. A click. The safe door opened. Inside was a large manila envelope, an old voice recorder, and a velvet box. I opened the envelope first. Documents. But not about financial fraud. These were birth certificates, death certificates, adoption records. And when I started reading, my whole world turned upside down. Because according to those documents, Linda wasn't my mother's sister. Linda was my grandfather's illegitimate daughter with a mistress he had in the 60s. My grandmother Eleanor only discovered this when Linda was 15, but decided to raise the girl as if she were a niece to avoid scandal. More, Marcus wasn't my mother's biological son. She'd secretly adopted him as a baby after discovering she was infertile, but told everyone he was hers. Only Vanessa and I were biologically hers, except that according to a birth certificate attached with a clip, Vanessa had a twin sister who was given up for adoption at birth, a sister my mother hid from everyone. My entire family was a lie. And then I pressed play on the voice recorder. Grandma Eleanor's voice filled the silent basement.
Claire, if you're hearing this, then you've already seen the documents. I know it's shocking, but you need to understand, dear. I kept these secrets my whole life to protect this family, but now I see that protecting secrets only created monsters. Linda has always known the truth about her birth. I told her when she turned 18, and since then, she's been using that to blackmail the family, demanding equal parts of the inheritance, even without being a legal heir. Marcus discovered about his adoption at 25 when he needed a bone marrow transplant, and none of us were compatible. He was furious, felt deceived, and started planning how to recover what he thought he deserved. The recording continued. Vanessa doesn't know about her twin sister. Nobody knows, except me and your mother. But I found the girl, Claire. She lives in Toronto. Her name is Sophie, and she has a right to half of everything Vanessa would inherit. That's why I put everything in your hands, because you're the only honest one, the only one who hasn't been corrupted by secrets and lies. You'll decide what to do with this information, whether to tell the truth, whether to find Sophie, whether to expose the thieves. I trust you, my dear girl. I always have. Use what's in the velvet box wisely. It's your protection. The recording ended with a click. I opened the velvet box with trembling hands. Inside was a gun, a small pistol, .22 caliber, with a box of bullets, and a note from Grandma. I hope you never need to use it, but if you do, don't hesitate. I didn't know how to handle guns, had never held one in my life, but I took that pistol, put it in my purse along with all the documents, and went up from the basement with a plan starting to form in my head. If my family wanted to play dirty, I could too. But I'd be smarter, because I had something they didn't have. I had the truth, and I had 3 weeks until Halloween, the date that traditionally gathered the whole family at Grandma's mansion for her famous annual dinner. 3 weeks to prepare the biggest revelation that hypocritical family had ever seen.
I spent those 3 weeks planning. First, I made copies of all documents, physical and digital, scattered them in different places, bank vaults, with lawyers, with a trusted friend in Montreal. If anything happened to me, everything would come out. Second, I hired a private investigator to help me find Sophie, Vanessa's supposed twin sister. He found her in 5 days. She was a nurse in Toronto, 30 years old, identical to Vanessa, but with shorter hair and completely different style. I contacted her by email, explained who I was, sent a photo of Vanessa, said she had a family that didn't know of her existence. Sophie replied 2 days later saying she'd always known she was adopted, but never imagined having an identical twin. She agreed to come to Vermont on Halloween to meet the truth. Third, I set up a plan, a risky, dramatic plan, but one that would expose everything at once, because I knew my family was going to do something on Halloween. I'd intercepted emails from them discussing the lost safe and how they needed to make Claire reveal where Grandma Eleanor hid the $20 million. They thought I didn't know about the trust fund, thought I was stupid. And then Marcus had a brilliant idea, apparently. Hold a séance, contact Grandma Eleanor's spirit, make her reveal where the money was, and somehow convince me to participate and confess what I knew. It was ridiculous, it was desperate, and it was perfect for my plan. I responded to their invitation with fake enthusiasm. Of course, I'd love to try to contact Grandma. I miss her so much. Maybe she can give us peace. My mother nearly had a happiness attack. Finally, I was cooperating. The dinner was scheduled for 7 p.m. on October 31st at the mansion. The séance would be at midnight. Perfect time for spiritual contact, according to Aunt Linda, who apparently had become an occult expert in recent weeks. I prepared everything meticulously. First, I removed from the house everything that was truly valuable of Grandma's and stored it in a rented warehouse. Jewelry, small paintings, original documents. Then, I prepared the apparition. I had Grandma's favorite purple velvet dress, the one she wore on special occasions, had her wig, gray with those curls she always maintained, had the perfume, lace gloves, shoes, and most importantly, I had the documents, the real ones, those they thought they'd burned. Because yes, they tried to destroy evidence. 2 weeks before Halloween, someone broke into the mansion. I had cameras installed, so I saw everything. It was Marcus and Vanessa. They found the basement safe, found documents, but they were fake copies I'd deliberately planted. They took everything, went to the backyard, poured lighter fluid, and burned them. Then took photos as proof they'd destroyed the evidence. Idiots. They didn't know I had the originals. Didn't know I had footage of them breaking in. Didn't know anything. And then Halloween arrived. The day dawned cold and cloudy. Typical Vermont late October. The trees were almost bare, black branches against gray sky. Perfect for a séance, I thought, ironically. I spent the day preparing. Sophie arrived at 3 p.m. When I opened the door and saw that face identical to Vanessa's, I felt a chill. "Oh my God," she whispered, "this is real." I confirmed, "It's real. And tonight, you're going to meet your family, but not the way they expect." I explained the plan. Sophie listened with open eyes. At the end, she smiled. "This is insane." "I know. I'm in." At 7 p.m., the family started arriving. My mother, Patricia, arrived first, driving that Mercedes I was sure she'd bought with stolen money. She brought a store-bought pumpkin pie. Didn't even bother to make one. Marcus arrived soon after with his wife Judith, a cold woman who clearly was in on the scheme based on the emails I'd found. Vanessa arrived with her fiancé Brad, a Wall Street broker who probably knew nothing. And Aunt Linda closed the group carrying a box with supplies for the séance. Candles, a Ouija board, incense, that whole bad horror movie thing. The dinner was tense, everyone forcing themselves to be polite to me, but I saw the greed in their eyes. They were studying me, trying to figure out what I knew, what I'd found. "So, Claire," my mother began as we ate the dry turkey she'd made, "did you have a chance to explore the house, find interesting things of Grandma's?" "Some," I said vaguely. "Lots of old letters, photos, that kind of thing." "And the bank safe deposit box?" Marcus had no subtlety whatsoever. "What was in there?" "Paperwork. Documents from Grandpa's trust fund, legal stuff Robert will handle." Everyone's ears perked up. "Trust fund?" Aunt Linda asked with a too casual voice. "Yes. Apparently, Grandpa left one for the grandchildren. Opens when I turn 30. Didn't you know?" Silence. They exchanged looks. Finally, Vanessa said, "Grandma never mentioned anything about that." Liar. The dinner dragged on with fake conversation about grandma memories, how everyone missed her, how the family was united in these difficult times. I wanted to laugh, or vomit, or both. Finally, at 11:30, Aunt Linda announced, "It's almost time. Let's prepare the room." The formal living room was transformed. Curtains closed, blocking the full moon outside, white candles in a circle on the floor, the Ouija board in the center, chairs arranged around it, sandalwood incense burning, leaving that heavy smoke in the air. "Everyone should sit in a circle," Aunt Linda instructed. "Hold hands, keep an open mind. The spirit will sense if you don't believe." I almost laughed at that. We sat down, my mother to my left, Marcus to my right, Vanessa and Brad, Judith, Linda, completing the circle. "Close your eyes," Linda instructed with a theatrical voice. "Breathe deep, clear your mind. We're going to call the spirit of Eleanor Morrison." She started with that typical litany. "Spirits from beyond, we call you tonight. Eleanor Morrison, if you're listening, please give us a sign. Your family needs you. We have questions. We need guidance." Silence. The wind blew outside, making the windows rattle. Linda continued, "Eleanor, you left something unfinished. There are secrets, things only you know. Please communicate with us. Use this board. Move the pointer. Give us answers." That's when I opened my eyes just a crack and saw my mother with her eyes open too, looking at Marcus. He nodded, and then my mother accidentally moved the Ouija pointer. "Oh, it's moving." Everyone opened their eyes. The pointer was going to the letter Y, then E, then S. "Yes, she's saying yes," Vanessa practically screamed. Linda took command. "Eleanor,
Is it you? If it's you, give us another sign. The candle closest to me flickered, obviously because of the wind from the poorly closed window, but everyone gasped. It's her, Aunt Linda announced with conviction. Eleanor, where did you hide the money? Where are the $20 million from the trust fund? The pointer didn't move because obviously nobody knew what to do to fake that answer. And that's when I stood up. This is ridiculous, I said. They looked at me surprised. Claire, sit down, my mother hissed. You're going to break the circle. There is no circle, I said. You're manipulating that ridiculous board, thinking I'm stupid enough to fall for this and reveal what I know. Deadly silence. Marcus was the first to recover. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. The trust fund you've been stealing from for years. The $20 million that belongs to me, Marcus, and Vanessa, but you're diverting to offshore accounts. Nobody breathed. And then my mother laughed, a high-pitched, uncomfortable laugh. Claire, dear, you're confused. There's no theft. No. I grabbed my purse that was strategically positioned behind my chair, took out a folder, threw it on the coffee table with a thud, then explained these bank statements, these transfers to shell companies, these emails discussing distributions. Marcus stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. Where did you get that? The same place I got the emails of you discussing how to kill Grandma. Vanessa went white. We never... I have the email, Vanessa, the one you sent Marcus. Final solution. How long does the medicine take to act without leaving traces? Want me to read it out loud? Aunt Linda was shaking. You can't prove anything. I can. I have copies of everything, with lawyers, with the police. If anything happens to me, all of it comes out automatically. Now it was my mother shaking, with rage. You ungrateful little bitch! After everything we did for you? Did for me? You killed Grandma. She was going to destroy this family. She was going to cut off our access to the money, change everything for you, a girl who didn't even care, who didn't even stay here. Because I knew there was something rotten in this family, and I was right. That's when I saw Aunt Linda going to hoard her purse. In slow motion, I saw her putting her hand inside, and I remembered Grandma's words, "They're dangerous when they feel threatened." I put my hand in my own purse, feeling the cold metal of the pistol. Linda pulled out something that glinted in the candlelight, a gun. She pointed it at me. "You're going to give us all those documents now." My hand trembled in my purse. "Linda, put that away." "No," she screamed. "I'm not going to lose everything because of a nosy girl who doesn't know when to shut up. You're going to shoot me in front of everyone? If necessary, and we'll tell a nice story about how you went crazy, made threats, and it was self-defense. You'll shoot me in front of witnesses?" I saw Marcus and my mother exchange looks. They were considering it. Vanessa was crying but doing nothing to stop it. That's when the lights went out. Completely. The entire house plunged into darkness. Only the candles flickering. And then a voice. Grandma Eleanor's voice, coming from the hallway. "You dare invoke the dead when you yourselves are murderers?" Everyone froze. The voice came again, closer. "You took my life. You stole from my granddaughters. You lied and cheated and destroyed this family." And then I saw it, a figure entering the room, wearing the purple velvet dress, the gray wig, walking slowly, ghost-like, using Grandma's silver-handled rope cane. Everyone started screaming. Linda dropped the gun. Marcus stumbled backward. My mother fainted. Vanessa and Brad ran to the corner. The figure kept walking, each step measured, dramatic. "I see you. I see what you did. The medicine you put in my tea. The lies you spread. The money you stole." The voice was perfect. I'd practiced for weeks, but it wasn't me speaking. It was Sophie, wearing Grandma's clothes, following the script we rehearsed. She stopped in the center of the room, lit by the candles, and raised a gloved hand. In it, an envelope. "But the dead don't stay silent forever. And I brought gifts from beyond." She threw the envelope on the floor, photos scattered. Photos I'd taken of myself wearing that same outfit hours before, positioned to look like Grandma was appearing in various places in the house. Linda was hyperventilating. "This isn't real. It's not real." "Isn't it?" Sophie/Eleanor's voice asked. "Then explain this." She threw another envelope, documents scattered, the bank records, the transfers, everything illuminated by the flickering candles. Marcus was the first to regain some sanity. "It's a trick. Someone's fooling us." "You think?" Sophie said, dropping the grandma voice for a moment. And then the lights came back on. Turned on by me with a switch I'd specifically installed for this moment. And under the bright light, everyone saw. It wasn't Grandma Eleanor. It was a younger woman with Vanessa's face. Marcus gasped. "Vanessa, how are you?" But he was looking at the real Vanessa, still huddled in the corner. "I'm not Vanessa," Sophie said, removing the gray wig, revealing her short blonde hair. Vanessa was staring at Sophie as if seeing a ghost. Who are you?" "My name is Sophie Chen, and I'm your twin sister." The silence that followed was absolute. My mother recovered from her faint just in time to hear this. No. "Yes," I said, taking the folder of documents I'd hidden before dinner. "Birth certificate. 2 girls born to Patricia Morrison on October 12, 1994. Vanessa Ann Morrison and Sophie Ann Morrison. Sophie was given up to adoption 2 days later." Vanessa was hyperventilating now. "Mom, is this true?" My mother didn't answer, just looked at the floor. "Why?" Vanessa cried. "Why did you hide this from me? Why did you give away my sister?" "Because I was 19 years old. I was a child. 1 baby was already too much. 2 was impossible. So I kept you and gave Sophie to a Chinese couple who could give her a better life." "You had no right," I said coldly. "And you also had no right to steal from her, because according to Grandpa's trust fund, Sophie has as much right to the inheritance as Vanessa. You should have divided everything in 3 parts, but you stole 2/3. Marcus was doing mental math. 2/3 of 20 million, that's $13,333,333.33 to be exact, I said, which Sophie is now suing to receive, along with 30 years of interest. The room exploded, everyone talking at once, denying, screaming, accusing. And then Aunt Linda threw herself to grab the gun she dropped on the floor. I was faster, grabbed mine from my purse, pointed it at her. "Don't move." She froze. Everyone froze. "Claire," my mother said with a trembling voice, "you won't use that." "Won't I?" I said. "After everything you did? After threatening me? After killing a grandma?" "We had no choice," Vanessa cried. "She was going to disinherit us." "So the solution was murder?" I shouted back. "You're monsters, all of you." "And you're better?" Marcus said. "You're blackmailing us, threatening us, staging this ridiculous farce. You're just like us." His words hurt because a small part of me wondered if he was right, if I'd become as manipulative as them. But then I looked at Sophie, trembling in Grandma's dress, and I remembered. They'd stolen from her for 30 years. They'd killed an innocent woman. No, I wasn't like them.
"The difference," I said, lowering the gun, but not putting it away, "is that I'm on the right side of the law.
Everything you did is illegal. Everything I did was expose the truth. That's when we heard the sirens. Linda ran to the window. Police! There are police cars arriving. Yes, I said. I called them before dinner. Said there was evidence of crime here. Said my life might be in danger. They agreed to wait outside unless I didn't come out in an hour or called was an emergency code. You set this all up? Marcus said with hatred. From the beginning. From the funeral, I confirmed. Every conversation, every email I sent cooperating, every moment I pretended not to know, was buying time to gather evidence and make you reveal yourselves. The front door was broken down. Police entered. Hands where we can see them, they shouted. I put my gun on the floor slowly. I'm Claire Morrison. I called you. These people here committed financial fraud and homicide. The detective in charge, a man of about 40 named James Sullivan, picked up the gun from the floor and examined me. Are you okay, Miss Morrison? I am. But that woman there, I pointed to Linda, threatened me with a firearm. Her gun is still on the floor there. Another officer collected it as evidence. You have to understand, my mother began. This girl is making everything up. She wants our inheritance. She's slandering us. Here are the documents. I handed the folders to Detective Sullivan. Bank statements proving embezzlement, emails discussing Eleanor Morrison's murder, birth certificates proving identity fraud and concealment of legal heir. It's all there. The detective flipped through quickly. His eyes widened. This is substantial. And I have more, much more. Recordings. Surveillance videos showing 2 of them breaking into this house to destroy evidence. Testimony from a witness who was present when they planned the murder. I was lying about that last part, but they didn't know. Marcus tried to run. 2 officers tackled him. Handcuffs. Vanessa was crying hysterically. I didn't do anything. I just knew, but I didn't do anything. Complicity is a crime, I said coldly. You knew and didn't report it? That makes you guilty too. Brad, her fiancé, was in shock. Vanessa? You knew your family killed your grandmother? She didn't answer, just cried more. One by one, they were handcuffed. My mother, Marcus, Vanessa, and Linda. Even Judith, Marcus's wife, who the police determined was also involved based on the documents. 5 members of my family being taken away in police cars. The red and blue lights illuminating Grandma's Victorian mansion. Neighbors coming out to see the show. It was the scandal of the decade in Burlington. When the house finally emptied, just Sophie and I sat on the living room sofa. The candles had been extinguished by the police. Normal lights were on. The smell of incense still hung in the air. So, Sophie said, that was intense. I laughed, a hysterical laugh of relief. Intense is one word. Thank you, she said suddenly, for finding me, for giving me back my family, even if half of it is now being arrested. You deserved to know the truth. And you? She asked. How are you feeling? I thought for a long moment. Empty, relieved, guilty, triumphant, all at once? I think that's normal considering you just brought down your entire family. They brought themselves down, I corrected. I just provided the rope. In the following weeks, the case exploded in the news. Prominent Vermont family accused of murder and fraud. The trial was quick because the evidence was overwhelming. My mother, Marcus, Vanessa, and Linda were convicted. My mother and Linda got life for first-degree murder. Marcus got 30 years for fraud and complicity. Vanessa got a lighter sentence, 15 years, because her lawyer argued she was coerced and manipulated from a young age. The trust fund was finally accessed and properly distributed. $6,666,666.66 for me. The same for Sophie. And the same for the state, since Vanessa couldn't inherit while in prison. Sophie proposed we use part of the money to create a foundation in Grandma Eleanor's name to help orphans, victims of family fraud, people betrayed by those who should love them. I agreed immediately. Today, 2 years after that Halloween, I still live in Grandma Eleanor's mansion, but it's no longer a place of secrets. Sophie moved to Vermont and lives 3 blocks from here. We see each other every week. Vanessa, believe it or not, writes to us from prison. Letters apologizing, trying to explain, trying to reconnect. I haven't responded yet. I'm not sure I ever will. Marcus refuses to acknowledge what he did, still claims he was justified. My mother wrote once, blaming me for destroying the family. I burned that letter. Aunt Linda died in prison 6 months into her sentence. Heart attack, they said. I didn't go to the funeral. But here's the thing nobody knows. The thing I've never told anyone, not the police, not Sophie, not even Robert, the lawyer. There was one more document in that basement safe, one I didn't show anyone. A confession letter from Grandma Eleanor, written the night before she died. In it, she admitted something that changes everything. She wasn't murdered. She knew they were planning to kill her, yes, but she beat them to it. She took her own life. Peacefully, with dignity, on her own terms. She left that confession for me, explaining that she didn't want to give them the satisfaction, didn't want them to succeed, didn't want to die at their hands, so she chose her own ending.
Let them think they killed me, the letter said. Let them carry that guilt. Let them confess. Let them destroy themselves. Because Claire, my darling, the truth is this. The best revenge isn't exposing your enemies. It's letting them expose themselves. I'm taking control of my story, and I'm giving you the tools to take control of yours. Use them well, and remember, sometimes the dead tell better lies than the living. Love always, Eleanor. I burned that letter, just like I burned the real emails about the murder plot. Because those emails, I wrote them, using accounts I'd hacked, passwords I'd stolen, IP addresses I'd spoofed. The digitalis theory? Completely fabricated. The autopsy showed natural causes because there were natural causes. But I needed a crime, needed them to think they were murderers, needed them to act guilty, to confess, to destroy themselves trying to cover up something they didn't even do. And it worked. Because people who are capable of murder will confess to murder, even if they didn't commit it, when faced with evidence of their other crimes. They assumed. They filled in the gaps. They destroyed themselves. Does that make me a monster? Maybe. Does that make me like them? I don't know. But I do know this. They stole from Sophie for 30 years. They stole from me. They were planning to steal more. And Grandma gave me permission to stop them by any means necessary. So yes, I lied. I manipulated. I created a false murder to expose a real fraud. And I'd do it again because sometimes justice isn't about the truth. It's about the story you tell. And I told a damn good story. Sophie doesn't know. Nobody does. And nobody ever will. Except you. The person hearing this story. And here's my question for you. Am I the hero who saved an inheritance and exposed thieves? Or am I the villain who framed her family for a murder that never happened? Think carefully, because the answer says more about you than it does about me. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where your family is betraying you, stealing from you, plotting against you, remember this story. Remember that sometimes the best way to win isn't to play fair, it's to play smarter. Grandma taught me that. And now I'm teaching you. So here's what I want you to do. Think about your own family, your own secrets, your own lies, and ask yourself, if someone gave you the power to expose them, would you? Even if it meant becoming like them? Even if it meant crossing lines you never thought you'd cross? Because that's the real question this story asks. Not whether I was right or wrong, but whether you would do the same. And honestly, I think you would. We all would. When pushed far enough. When betrayed deeply enough. We all have a monster inside us. Mine just happened to wear Grandma's purple velvet dress and Chanel No. 5. What does yours look like? Happy Halloween.